Today, we're going to take a look at the premium Tier 7 Soviet cruiser Elephant, which is one of the pirate ships currently available for sale. I've taken off the pirate themed camo and put on a hunter camo just because I think it looks better, to be honest with you. Nothing against the art department, I'm just not a huge fan of the pirate themed camos. Anyway, this thing is basically a copy paste of the Tier 7 premium British cruiser Hampshire with a couple of differences. And of course, it comes with a unique pirate commander, or rather, you can buy a unique pirate commander meant for the ship. His name is Andrew the Lip, and unlike Robin Le Fierce for the French destroyers, I don't think this guy is as universally appealing across the Russian cruiser line. His base trait is kind of interesting. Maximum subsequent AP damage to the same target after each cruiser AP shell hit is increased by 12.5%, and the bonus hit applies to subsequent AP damage 0.5%. I'm not sure what the second part of that base trait means, but all in all, it means if you're shooting at the same target, as time goes on and you continue to hit them, the AP will damage them more. That's kind of interesting if you wanted to put that on something like the Stalingrad or the Petropavlovsk. But this guy's unique skill in the fourth row of skills is called Hit Them Hard. It improves the gun traverse speed on the cruiser, which is nice, but it also increases cruiser damage while the observation seaplane or spotter plane is active. In addition to that, it gives you an extra spotter plane charge. If you take a look at the consumables, you can see that we've got 5 spotter planes, we've got a sonar, which can be traded out for DFAA, and we've got an improved repair party that restores more HP than the typical cruiser. I don't think any of the other Russian cruisers in this game really have a spotter plane option. And even if they did, the heavy ones, like say Petropavlovsk or maybe Stalingrad at legendary tier, why would you ever trade the almost 12-kilometer radar for a spotter plane? I don't think you can do that, but if you could, what would be the justification? What? So you could launch this spotter plane up in the air and get a little bit of extra damage, almost like a light Arthas type thing? Doesn't make any sense to me, so I don't think this commander is going to be as worth it for the rest of the Russian line as maybe the French gunboat commander would be. I'd say keep that in mind if you're thinking of buying this ship or this commander. Maybe the base trait helps out a little bit, I don't know. I'll put him on Petropavlovsk or Stalingrad and take that out and give it a test sometime in the near future just to see, but I am a little bit skeptical. The ship, however, being a Hampshire, is actually pretty good, and its specialty is demolishing enemy cruisers. Take the York as an example here. A bunch of citadels, as he's mostly broadside to us, but slightly angled. We have very much improved penetration angles and short-fused AP, since this is a British cruiser. Also, since it's a British cruiser, we don't seem to enjoy the same super railgun shell velocity that's typical for Soviet ballistics. These are fairly floaty shells by Soviet standards, but perfectly normal by British. And they can even do a healthy amount of damage to enemy destroyers. You can see even when they angle, there's not a lot of ricochets. I guess there was one there. However, because these are heavy cruiser guns, that is 203 millimeter guns or 8-inch guns, they will overpenetrate destroyers a lot, but they will demolish enemy cruisers. And as I said, they have improved pen angles. There are 10 of them set in 5 double turrets. They have a reload time with this build of 9.4 seconds. I believe that is with the reload mod in the 4th slot. They have a maximum range of 15.4 kilometers, which I haven't built for. And the maximum AP shell damage is 4,900 base, which is one difference between this ship and the actual Hampshire. The Hampshire has slightly lower AP alpha. However, the Elephant has slightly lower HP. We've only got 34,000 compared, I think, to Hampshire's 37. So we're missing a couple thousand HP. And it's not like the armor scheme on this thing is fantastic. This is a British cruiser, and they aren't exactly known for having great armor. The entire bow section of the ship, which extends all the way back to the third turret on the front, is 25 millimeters, which means it's overmatchable by practically everything. Same is true of the stern. The center of the ship is fairly well armored. It's got 27 millimeter upper belt armor. It actually has fairly good deck armor at 30 millimeters, which could help shatter a little bit of HE here and there, maybe bounce some battleship AP as well if you're at long distance. But the Citadel is much like the other British Citadels. It's a big old box. It is only between the front funnel, though, and the very rear turret, so it's not across the entire ship. You sort of have to aim back to hit it, but if you do hit it, it extends far above the waterline and is, easily accessible, so you'll probably get blown up if you get hit. You definitely want to avoid that in this thing, as well as the Hampshire. We've also got torpedoes, of course. There are two quadruple launchers on either side of the ship, or rather, one quadruple launcher on either side of the ship for a total of two. The torpedoes range out to 10 kilometers. They've got a 62 knot speed. They hit for 15,533 with a 1.3 detect, and they reload in 96 seconds. So they're fairly usable, I suppose. I can't remember if we actually end up getting any hits in this battle. The AA defenses, I don't know. Miraculously, I haven't seen any Chekhovs or really any CVs as I've played the Elephant over the course of a few games over the past few days. So, can't speak on it too much, but I would be skeptical that this thing is going to be good at defending itself against planes. The maneuverability is a little bit of a low light here. This is not a fast cruiser by any stretch of the imagination. We've got a top speed of 30 knots, which is, I would say, bad for a cruiser. Exceptionally bad, honestly, for Tier 7. And when you think you have 30 knots top speed, well, if you're going to be maneuvering a lot, which you probably will have to in order to, dodge and angle, then you're never really going to be hitting 30 knots. It's going to be more like 27, 28. That's more like battleship speed, not cruiser speed. So it does feel quite sluggish, I would say. Turning circle, however, is decent at 710 meters, and the rudder shift is serviceable at 7.8. The concealment, though, is a highlight. We do have Mikawa as one of the inspirations and the concealment module equipped, and I've got 9.4 kilometer detectability by sea. I would say that is fairly good. Allows you to position a little bit easier, just takes you a little bit longer to get into said position because of the lack of speed. So, is this ship worth buying? I would say probably not. I mean, maybe. It is just a copy-paste of a Hampshire, and it's more or less that, minus a little bit of HP, plus a little bit of alpha on the AP shells. It's basically a side grade, I would say, and you can get more or less the same experience if you choose to buy the British version, the Hampshire, which I think you may still be able to. I'll have to take a look at the store. Yeah, the Hampshire is available for doubloons in the store, so you still could buy it. And if you already have it, there's probably no point in getting this thing. The Soviet commander's gimmick is certainly a little bit interesting, and it does give more oomph to these AP shells. And to begin with, I've always kind of thought Hampshire's AP was cracked anyway. The same is true here. I think we've spent a little bit of time shooting at that kiting Alabama, and we've taken some shots against some battleships throughout the duration of this game, even the Lenin, who we were able to pen somewhat. And typically, when the shells land on a battleship that they can pen, They do something like 7,000 damage. It's pretty significant. And when you're doing that every 9.4 seconds or so, it adds up very, very quickly. And you can sort of do battleship level damage to an enemy battleship, just not as quickly as an actual battleship can do it. It'll take you 2, 3, 4 salvos, whereas a battleship would do it in one. But it's still very powerful AP. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Finally, we'll launch the Torpedoes at the Lenin, who's pushing in. This game is, I think, a little bit closer than it looks. We've got 4 ships left alive to the enemy's 3, one of whom is the Lenin pushing into the friendly cruiser over there. I was thinking that cruiser is probably toast, but maybe we'll be able to help him out if we can actually land shells. And speaking of Hampshire, we'll get a good chance to see which vessel is superior, because that cruiser out in the distance that just hit us with an AP shell is actually a Hampshire. We got to get behind the island here, though, so Lenin can't shoot at us. That is one scary battleship, especially at this kind of close range. I'm sure he could dev strike us in a single salvo if he got it aimed well enough. But it looks like he's hurting. He appears to have taken some torpedoes. None of ours yet. They seem to be getting there quite slowly, but there's one. Only hits him for 7,200, but it's enough to net us a second fisting ribbon for a second assist in this game, and we're up to 96,000 damage done. Not a hugely impressive amount of damage by any stretch of the imagination, but fairly efficient damage against pretty much every target. We'll get another example of how good this AP can be against an enemy destroyer who is giving us his bow. That's the Friesland. We pen him once and he disappears, so results inconclusive. But against the New Hampshire, we get 5 penetrations, no Citadel, high caliber metal though. Keep in mind, to actually hit the Citadel, you do have to be further back on the ship, so we probably just didn't reach it. Anyway, Hampshire hits us back really hard because, again, this AP on both of these ships is to some large degree cracked. Friesland smoked up, gonna try to take a blind shot. I don't think we'll actually hit. We didn't aim it properly. But my main concern is simply not sinking. I'm not gonna push into that Hampshire and give him the opportunity to send me back to port early. Nor do I want to get spotted so the Friesland can farm me. I'm sure he can deal quite a bit of damage over time. The only question is the Hampshire going to be brave? These guys cannot just sit back and hope to win. It's not going to happen. They're going to need to push out and play aggressively and try to sink all of us, which I don't think they can accomplish. The friendly battleship, even if I went down and even if the destroyer went down, he's all the way on the other side of the map and there's no torpedo threat to him, so I don't think he's going down and we've got this game won. The only question is, can we take out the Hampshire? There's another hit for 7,100, still no Citadels. We're able to mostly juke the Hampshire's return salvo, and we aim up as we see him turning out. Once again, miss the Citadel. So maybe this is deceptively harder to hit than I thought it would be, but I wouldn't take any chances on it. Not with British heavy cruisers. Anyway, as you can see, the AP is very good at dealing damage even to angled cruisers. That is, I think, improved penetration angles and just the overall spice on this AP. It's very effective. We end the game with 3,288 base XP, which I think is a decent result, even if the damage isn't mind-blowing or impressive. It was good, efficient, meaningful damage because this AP is strong. Nevertheless, I think if you have the Hampshire, there's probably no reason to buy this, and if you're interested in either one of these ships, well, honestly, you could go either way, but I don't know how much mileage you'll get out of this Soviet cruiser commander on the other Soviet cruisers. So just keep that in mind. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.